Okay, so I think we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're going to be discussing the drug approval process in Canada. My name is Kimberly Burnell, and I'm the Ontario Regional Support Liaison for AMAC. If you don't know who we are, AMAC is a leading funder of research into bone marrow failure diseases in Canada. We support patients and caregivers from across the country who are dealing with aplastic anemia, myelodysplastic syndrome, and PNH. I'm so pleased today to be joined by Anil Kaul, and Anil is the Associate Director for Patient Access at Sobi, and he's going to be talking to us about drug approval process in Canada. At this time, all of the lines are muted, but if you have questions throughout the presentation, there's two ways that you can do that. If you want to speak directly with Anil, if you want to ask your question, you can use the raise your hand feature, and I can unmute your line and you can have a direct conversation. Alternatively, you can type your question into the chat box or the question box at any time, and then we will cover your question either during the presentation or at the very end. Today, the session will be audio recorded, so if you want to watch it back later, you can do so on our website. So without further ado, Anil, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
You want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm going to share that. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. And I want to just thank AMAC and Kimberly and Cindy for inviting me to do this talk. As mentioned, my name is Anil, and I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I've been doing market access for over 12. And what I'm going to try to do is take on this mammoth task of reviewing the approval process for drugs in Canada. But what I'm going to try to do is give you an overview, because it is a very complex and intricate environment. But I'm going to try to make it really simple and give you an overview. But you're welcome to ask questions. And also, if you want to go deep into any area, I can also give you my information, and you can reach out to me and we can have a chat offline if needed. Okay, so we'll get going. There we go. So the objective of today's, or the agenda for today is to do the welcome introductions, which we've done, go over some objectives. We're going to go over the overview of the approval process. We'll look at some special access program, look at Health Canada drug approval, look at some pricing, talk about the health technology assessment, the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, and then the provincial coverage that ends up at the end of the day providing public coverage in the provinces. There are a lot of acronyms when it comes to market access and to drug approval. I have tried to write all the names out and all the acronyms out, but if there's an acronym that I throw in there and you don't understand, please feel free to ask. And we'll leave some time for question and answer. So the objectives today is to provide an overview, not in detail, but an overview. Review some of the major entities that are involved in the process, like Health Canada and CADA, timelines for the various reviews, where and how patient input is accepted, and address any questions from the audience. All right, how are drugs approved in Canada? So first of all, we have your drug company that develops a new drug. And when they're ready and they've done their research and studies, phase 3 trials, they will submit to Health Canada. And Health Canada, just so that we level set what everybody does here, basically decides should the drug be sold in Canada. So they review the scientific evidence and determine if the drug is safe and of suitable quality and it works as intended. Health Canada doesn't really get into the price. It does not get into the effectiveness compared to existing drugs. They just look at the drug and what it does what it's supposed to do. If it's approved, and we'll go through each one of these, then it is available for people to pay, number one, out of pocket. So if you really need a drug and you can afford it, you can just simply get it from the pharmacy or ask the manufacturer and pay for the drug. Another way you can access drug once it's approved by Health Canada is through your private drug plans. Now, these are drug plans through your work and or from out of pocket that you may pay for, like Sun Life, Canada Life, Great West Life, and Blue Cross. And what they do is basically work through your employers, maybe to provide you a certain amount of coverage. And usually these are pretty quick to occur, although they've started doing some sort of a review as well, and will and they can take up to 6 to 9 months to approve a particular drug on their coverage plan. And this is a very important area because I often get questions regarding a patient coming into a doctor's office and saying, hey, I've got Sun Life or Great West Life, and my friend also has it, but for some reason, I can't get drug A covered for me, but they do because they're on the same, they're covered by the same company. So the important thing to know about private drug plans is really, it's not about which company covers you, but rather what plan your employer has selected for you. Your deductions are based on that, and your drugs that are covered are based on that as well. So that is a very big nuance that you need to know and be aware of, because we can all be with Great West Life, but none of us can be covered for the same drugs. So once you get that drug or the private coverage, and the drug is available to the public. And the area that we will be focusing on is the public coverage, which is with the provinces. And we're going to review the Canadian Health Technology Assessment and CADTH and ENES. Now I'll explain what they are in a bit, but they are the ones that look at the drugs and answer the question, does the drug offer value for money? They look at the clinical benefits and the cost of the drugs and issue a recommendation for or against the public funding. Now, if you get a positive recommendation and they send you forward after their review, you will land at another agency called the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance. Now, the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, their mandate basically, or their job is, the question that they answer is, can we negotiate a lower price for the drug? Now, jointly, they represent all the provinces, and they look at the criteria and also the price of the drug and try to come up and negotiate a price and a criteria. If you get approval from that body, then it goes to the next level. The next level is your provinces, and they're the ones who decide if they will cover the drug or not under their plans and under their provincial formularies. And they consider all sorts of factors, including everything that's been reviewed by the Pan-Canadian, the price, the value, and make the final decision if they have room under their budget. With all this going on, there is another body that's involved that works across everything, and which is the pricing body, which is called the PMPRB, or the Patented Medicine Review Price Board, that regulates our price in Canada, and they basically set the maximum price a patent drug can charge for, can cost in Canada, and we'll review that as well. Before a drug even goes to Health Canada, if Health Canada does have a program or a mechanism by which treatments are available, even though they haven't been approved in Canada and they're not available in Canada. This is called the Special Access Program. And I just thought I'd touch base on this thing because it's kind of important. So it is a process that's initiated by a physician on behalf of the patient. They apply to Health Canada for a special access program. They have to go in and request and provide supporting evidence any studies, any case studies from other jurisdictions, other countries, or any research that has been done to support why they want to use this product. And the requests are usually processed very quickly. And then Health Canada will work with the manufacturer to try to get the medication directly to the patient. And some therapies for rare disease and cancer end up being used through this process. Just so that you guys are all aware, or everybody's aware, that there is a process, even though Health Canada has not yet reviewed or made a decision on a product.
Anil, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So if the drug is approved, so if your physician puts the request on your behalf and it's approved, so the government of Canada will absorb the cost of that drug. Who pays for the drug in the end if you do receive it in that way?
So these are drugs that are not approved yet.
Right.
So once they're approved, they will go through one of the other mechanisms. But these are drugs that have not been reviewed or approved by Health Canada. And these are usually, there's either they will pick it up, or the cost will be borne by the patient.
Okay.
In some cases.
Okay, thank you.
So the drug approval process for the public coverage, that's what we're going to focus on in the green. And then we'll go step by step, highlighting it in green for you. So Health Canada, let's look at this. So drugs are submitted to Health Canada for approval. These are for new drug submissions, new indications, or new formularies. Health Canada reviews the product for safety, efficacy, and quality, and basically decides should the drugs be sold in Canada, as I mentioned. And the end result of the review is a notice of compliance, and the acronym is NOC, notice of compliance with conditions. And the conditions could be criteria, could be certain tests have to be done, something has to be failed, or whatnot. Or you'll get a notice of deficiency where it's basically rejected and you don't get approval. This review usually takes 300 days to do. That's your standard review. There is a mechanism that they have that you can have a priority review, and it's granted by having a pre-submission meeting with Health Canada and point out with evidence why you need a priority review. And priority reviews are granted for treatments, preventions, or diagnosis of serious, life-threatening, or severely debilitating illness or conditions where A, there's no other drugs that are treatments that are existing, or B, there's the product presents a significant improvement or benefit over existing products. And that review period, instead of the 300 days, it'll take about 180 days. So you can cut 6 months off. This process is mostly closed to the public, and there is no real input by the patients on this process. So pricing, so that's that body I talked about, the Patented Medicine Price Review Board. So in Canada, the prices are regulated. In the United States, a company can charge whatever price the market will bear. But we have this body, PMPRB, that regulates the prices. Their mandate is basically to ensure that our prices in Canada are not excessive. And one of the tools that they use, and they have for many years, is they look at 7 comparator countries. And I've listed them here for you: United States, Switzerland, Germany, UK, France, Spain, and Italy. So they look at them, what the prices are there, and then they decide what we're going to do here. Now, you could have only 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those countries that have launched the product and have a price. And there's also a mechanism PMPRB has if I don't think it's in the very rare instance that Canada is the first one, there's a price that can be charged until some of these other countries come on board, and then prices are adjusted and they ask for rebates if it was too high. They also report on price trends and research and development investments. So every year, twice a year, manufacturers have to report to PMPRB about spending on research and development in Canada. The annual report from 2018 found that Canadian prices were 4th highest among the 7 comparator countries. So we're right in the middle, and that's what it's supposed to be. And as long as we don't go too high. There have been, and this is a talk in itself, there were some proposed changes to the guidelines of the PMPRB that were initiated or suggested to be implemented in 2019. But they have been delayed to 2020, and now, or 2019 they were developed, 2020 when they were supposed to come in, but they've been delayed twice. Now they're supposed to be implemented in January 2022. These guideline changes are a significant departure from their mandate of trying to prevent excessive pricing. They're changing the 7 countries that they've been using to 11 and dropping the 2 more expensive countries like United States and Switzerland. And they're also introducing pharmacoeconomic information and net pricing that's negotiated at the PCPA level into their decision-making on price, which again, they're mandated to make sure that we're not excessive, and instead of trying to lower our price through the pharmacoeconomic mechanism. There's some challenges with this. I know a lot of patient groups have written in expressing concern. The industry is certainly very concerned, and there's lots of nuances behind that. So we'll see what happens in January. Hopefully they'll be delayed from our perspective, from the industry perspective, and also from the patient perspective, because we feel that drugs will be delayed and or may not even enter Canada if some of these regulations come to be. So that's your Health Canada and PMPRB. Once you get a notice of compliance, hopefully, and you are ready to go and you can sell your drug in Canada, your drug, again, goes either out of pocket or to the private plans. And for the public access, it goes to CADTH or INESS. These are your health technology assessment bodies. So CADTH is the Canadian Agency for Drug and Technology in Health, and INESS is the Quebec equivalent. So let's look at the health technology assessment. So there's 2. Basically, they review oncology and non-oncology products, and recommendations are issued based on the clinical studies, the therapeutic advantages, cost effectiveness. So they look at a lot of the technical side of things, and especially the cost effectiveness. These recommendations are then used by the provinces and the PCPA, and I'll tell you what PCPA is in a second, towards listing decisions. Now, this HTA review process is one that is more open and does request input from patients and physicians. So the patient groups and individual patients can provide input through an online portal and template. So CADTH will issue a notice that say drug A is now has been submitted to them and will be reviewed, and they have opened up input for the patients and physicians for the next, I think it's a 60-day period. Input is sought early and included into prior to the initiation of the review, and then it is also used to support any of the evidence that is filed by the manufacturer. So it's best to reach out to your association, AMAC. I know Cindy and Kimberly would love to hear about that if and when a drug is being submitted. And sometimes AMAC or the patient group will reach out to the patients as well. So the patient groups can also provide feedback on draft recommendations. So once a draft recommendation is issued by CADTH, they will send it to the patient group who submitted on the online portal and kind of get their feedback, and I'll review what they asked there as well. So physicians and physician groups, as I mentioned, are also asked for their input in this process. And that's very impactful in the review. So areas of input for the patients. So you will, when you go to the portal, they'll ask you about yourself or your organization. They'll ask how the information was gathered. So a lot of times patient groups, if there is one that exists, they will reach out to patients and kind of ask, about their own, individual disease, and then kind of put a file together and submit it online saying, okay, we surveyed 15 patients or 30 patients or 200 patients, and here's what the feedback is. They look at experience with the current therapies, if there were any improved outcomes, experience with the drug that's under review. Now, you might get experience through a trial or through that special access program that I mentioned in the start, so that they can also look at what diagnostic testing is done, any other information. And last but not least, they ask for conflict of interest. And basically, this is very important for you to read and for the organization to read, and make sure you answer and provide the information they're requesting. And they're really looking at, did you have any outside assistance? And if so, who provided assistance and whatnot. So that's where the patient input comes in. Because I'm always asked, hey, listen, do the patients get an opportunity to provide anything to the reviewers? Any questions so far?
Yeah, we have one. How do they compare pricing for rare disease with other countries when similar medications have not been approved before?
So sometimes so your product could be launched in other countries first. And in the case where there's no other country has launched the product that we're talking about, they will set an artificial price that they will allow the company to set a price, and then they'll see what the other countries end up listing it as once they have it available in their jurisdictions. And like I said to you before, if the price was excessive, they will ask for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, I hope?
If not, please put a follow-up question in the answer in the question box. Thanks, Anil.
Okay. Oops. So about the physicians will also be able to go to the portal, and they'll have their templates as well to fill out. They'll ask about the group or about the clinician, how the information was gathered. Again, same thing, was it one individual or were a bunch of physicians consulted? Current treatments, treatment goals, treatment gaps, any unmet needs, place in therapy, additional information. They also have a conflict of interest. Now, again, I've kind of highlighted, kind of underlined this because sometimes AMAC and patient groups end up helping patient groups and or patients provide some of the information to this to the HTA, and you really need to know what they're asking for in this conflict of interest. And it states in there, quote unquote, is each clinician that contributed to the input must complete the conflict of interest declaration. So they want to know from each. So if you had 100 patients you sent, or physicians you sent out the survey to, 30 responded. So that doesn't mean that every 100 of the physicians need to sign this declaration or declare their conflict of interest. Only the 30 that responded would have to, but they would all have to declare their any conflict of interest. So just make sure that if you're doing this, you take note. Another question?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Oh, I lied. It popped in just as you said that. If Canada created or joined some other mid-sized countries with similar patient care philosophy or a drug-free trade bloc of sorts, would that result in improved drug access? And has this concept been debated?
So yes, that's a very good question, and it's something that that we I know that Health Canada looks at, it's very hard to collaborate and partner. They don't have a mechanism to do that with other countries. But what they do is look at what England does. They have a review body, just like our HTA, like CADIT and INES. They have something called NICE. It's a great acronym for them. And they do their reviews, and sometimes CADIT will follow what they're saying or be very interested in what they're saying. FDA, also they're interested in what they're doing and what their outcomes were and findings were. But they haven't really come up with a way to collaborate with a number of countries per se, but they do have, they do ask questions of each other. I know Health Canada will reach out, or CADIT will reach out to even Australia and see what they've done in their reviews and stuff. So there is some collaboration, but there's nothing formal. Canada likes to think, and it does do its own review. They may look at other jurisdictions, but it does its own review. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks, Anil. Yeah, wouldn't that be great if countries actually came together for this wonderful purpose? But I know it's not that easy.
Yeah, and you know what? I wouldn't be surprised, because we are living in a global economy, and a lot of things that we do in Canada are affected by what's happening around the world, especially in access. Yeah, a lot more and more collaboration is going on. I mean, not too long ago, before all this came to be, all these bodies that I'm speaking of didn't exist a few years back, because each province used to do its own review. So not to be redundant, they created these HTA like CADIT or CDR and PQuarter, and then they also created PCPA and stuff. So once you've provided your feedback, review is done, CADIT will provide a recommendation, which will be then shared by people who have provided input. And basically there's 6 yes or no questions. The first one being, stakeholder agreement on the draft recommendation. It's a yes or no, but you can also provide some explanation. The other 5 questions are basically yes or no questions. And the 4th one being 2-part or 2 questions. And that's something that you can fill out as well. So you provide some feedback on their draft recommendations before they actually make it an official recommendation. So Quebec has INES, and its manufacturers submit brand drugs, generics, and biosimilars to INES for evaluation. The review focus is on therapeutic value, cost effectiveness, and impact on the health budget. Budget impact analysis. The review takes about 6 months, and a priority review option is available for urgent medications. Patients and physician input is sought in this process, and that process is actually a little different, where a questionnaire is filled out and submitted to INES by both the physicians and the patient. Any questions on that?
Nothing right now.
Excellent. So again, CADIT reviews, INES reviews, they give a recommendation, list, but not at this price, list, but not, with this criteria, list, blah, blah, blah. So, but as long as you get an approval from a positive recommendation from CADIT and INES, you will then, especially on CADIT, not on INES, CADIT, if you get an approval, you go to the next stage, which is your Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, which is your PCPA. Now, as I mentioned, PCPA was established in 2010 to provide a joint provincial territorial negotiations. Before, they used to do this on their own, each one. You would go to each province, negotiate a price, negotiate criteria. And that's why there was a disparity between provinces. One was covering, the other wasn't. And for different criteria and at different prices. So this kind of makes it more uniform. They look at, they want to, the objective of this PCPA is to increase access to effective drugs, achieve lower drug costs. They figure they're negotiating as a combined body, as as the question was, why don't we all, partner with other countries? This is partnering with other jurisdictions within Canada. Reduce the duplication of effort and resources and improve consistency of decisions. All brand name drugs come forward through CADIT are considered for PCPA negotiations and concluded with a letter of intent, LOI. This letter of intent is critical, and it basically means you've reached an agreement on price and criteria. And the PCPA members include all provinces except Quebec, territories, and the federal plan. Once an LOI is issued, the manufacturer may then proceed to provincial listing agreements, and not all provinces are bound to list a product. I'm going to make a note of that. So this is important because before the negotiation even starts with the manufacturer, provinces go, I'm in, I'm out on drug A. We don't want to list it. We've seen the information because we have to submit dossiers to each province anyway. So you could have a case where a product is under negotiation with PCPA. Ontario says we're in, BC says they're not, Alberta says they're not, Saskatchewan says they're in, and Maritime say they're in. So you negotiate a price based on potential number of patients and whatnot. This is from a manufacturer standpoint. But no province is bound by their decision to enter into that negotiation or not. So they can come in or out of those negotiations at will. So once a deal has been struck, they can say, oh yeah, I'm in now. BC can decide to come in, and Ontario can say, you know what, we were in, but we're out. And now you've lost this huge market, and you've maybe given discounts considering that you were going to have a larger market. So it presents a real problem from a negotiation perspective as to when you don't have certainty as to what kind of which stakeholders are in and which are not. The average negotiation price or period is 10 months. The last I heard, which was a couple of months ago. Some files take as little as 2 months, and some are over 2 years. It just depends on the negotiation and where it's going, and various factors. It could be on the price of the drug. And rare disease is always a challenge. Just to give you a perspective, PCPA activity over this past year, as of yesterday, I pulled this yesterday from their website. So they've got active negotiations in 30 with 30 products, 20 non-oncology and 10 oncology products. So basically right now they're actively working on negotiating with manufacturers, with 30 manufacturers. They have 34 under consideration for negotiations. So that means it's probably just come out of CADIT review and are preparing dossiers and or proposals and are looking at how best to list the product, kind of comparing it to what's already available, what kind of price is already available, what other products are in the market, or therapeutic class comparison. Completed negotiations, there's been 454 completed. Of those, 393 received a letter of intent. That letter of intent, again, is a price and a criteria and or any other negotiated items that are contained within the agreement that can go to the provinces. And 61 of those have ended without an agreement, so no letter of intent, and therefore it has not reached the provincial provinces coverage. And this is something that I should mention at this point is with this creation of PCPA, if the PCPA does not give you a letter of intent, you cannot go individually to the provinces to try to list your drug in the provinces. They will not allow that, and that is discouraged, and your road basically ends. Negotiations that were not pursued are 85, and that's where manufacturer and or PCPA have decided not to negotiate because they wanted the discounts to be too high from a manufacturer's perspective, and they've left it. They've kind of made a decision basically not to go down the public reimbursement path and just stick with the private insurance and or out of pocket, and or they're distributed in the hospitals. Clear as mud.
And now, once a province opts in on a drug, is the price set for each province, or will the provinces then each on their own set their own price for that drug?
The price is set.
Okay, so provinces cannot change them once the price has been set.
Yeah, basically so what happens in that negotiation is you have your PCPA office, and the provinces designate one province as their negotiator. So the manufacturer sits down. So it could be Ontario is designated for product A, Alberta for product B, BC for product C. So they kind of represent the other people who are in, or the other provinces who are in. And once a price is negotiated, that's done on behalf of everybody who's kind of in.
Okay, so if I'm a patient in Ontario, I'm going to get the same access to that drug as a patient in a different province. The price isn't going to change.
No.
Okay.
You're not going to get the same access. I'm going to get to that in a second.
Thanks.
Because Ontario can decide not to list, even though it's gone through the PCPA process and they have a price agreed upon. They can still decide not to list.
Okay, I'll wait to find that out then.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, this PCPA, nobody's bound to this. You can even say, like I said, you can say that you're in or out, but you're not held accountable to what you've said at the onset of the negotiation. You can opt in or out at any point, and that's a huge benefit to the provinces. And a detriment to anybody negotiating. It's basically, you don't know how many units you're selling.
That's right.
Or what your market is. And you're supposed to negotiate with those terms. Okay. Perfect. And so now once you get a letter of intent and approval, basically from your PCPA, and you've negotiated a price and a criteria and everything is all good, it goes to the provinces. Now the provinces who said we're in, they will then review what the PCPA did, and then decide if they can afford it and what the budget impact will be there in their province, and decide to basically enter into a listing agreement that's called PLA, Provincial Listing Agreements. And once that is done, it is put on the formulary and available to the public on the public drug fund. So federal government has the final say. So the territory or the provinces have the final say in the decision whether medicine is publicly funded or not. That's the bottom line. So we've gone through all these processes, but still it's the province's decision, because at the end of the day, federal governments give a transfer fee to the provinces for healthcare. And it's the provinces who hold the purse and decide what they can afford or not afford. The federal government has the final say on their 6 formularies of your NIHB, your First Nation, Inuit, veterans, Canadian Forces members, designated migrants, RCMP, and Corrections Canada. So basically there's 19 public formularies, each with their own review and decision-making process. Patient groups and patients can have an impact at the provincial level with effective advocacy. I've seen this being done in the past. I've been involved in some of it. Basically, you can encourage your province to be part of a PCPA negotiation and say, listen, we really need this medication. So there's some pressure that can be put, or some education that can be done by not only patient groups, but by physicians with politicians and bureaucrats, and media campaigns, so that it's people are aware that, for example, a new drug is available that could be significant improvement over what's available now. Oh, question.
Yes, I see it there. Is it often true a drug simply won't be made available in Canada, even for private purchase, if not approved for government funding, because sales volumes will be too small for pharma company to go through the regulatory process?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard this one before too, yeah.
So what happens in those cases, remember that body I spoke about that regulates prices, excessive prices? They have sometimes come back and said, listen, you know, yeah, you're a new product. I can tell you from experience, it's innovative. Like biologics were new and innovative back in the day when you know, for rheumatoid arthritis, what they were using was methotrexate, for example, which was cheap. It has been there for 40 years. So charging a new price for those biologics, if they were to say, yeah, but your comparator is methotrexate and you got to charge, you know, 50 cents for your product, that those products would never be launched in Canada. Just wouldn't make sense.
And this is the issue we often run into with rare disease drugs.
Absolutely. And rare disease is, so we're trying to come up with a rare disease strategy, a rare disease process in review, because often we don't have trials of 1,000 patients or 2,000 patients. We have 50 patients. We may have 10 patients in some cases. Our company, I know we have a drug that was recently submitted, and we're looking at roughly 10 patients in Canada. It's a challenge. And I get it, it's a challenge for the reviewers as well, but I think there's some dialogue and discussions that can take place where evidence can be generated after its approval and in partnership together to see if it's working or not, and it's working properly.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Good question. So how long does it take to get drugs covered? As I mentioned, Health Canada is about 300 days, unless you're in priority review, which is 180. Your CADIT review can take 6 to 9 months. Then your Pan-Canadian Alliance, as I said, it can take anywhere from 3 to 12 to 24 months. Public plans after that in the provinces can take 1 to 6 to 12 months. It all depends, or never. And basically you're looking at 10 months, 2 years plus for that public reimbursement after Health Canada has said this drug is okay to be sold in Canada. Now, oops, I'm missing I don't know why, but I'm missing a slide here. I'm just going to escape. I'm going to show you this slide. I don't know why it's hidden. This is a look at the public coverage rate for new drugs back from 2009 to 2018. This is a great picture illustration of what really happens. And this is from their website. Only 26% of new drugs approved by Health Canada between 2009 and 2018 were covered by public drug plans. And here's some numbers on the bottom is PEI 20%, BC 21, Ontario 32, 34 is the highest. On average, it's 26%. And the average time was 690 days from notice of compliance, which is, again, it's a reminder from Health Canada. So after Health Canada approves it, it's taken almost 2 years. And most of these lists are as special authorization versus full benefit. So basically, there's limitations on how they're prescribed and when they're prescribed. Any questions on that?
Nothing right now.
Perfect. I'm going to leave about 15 minutes for any questions that we haven't addressed or any discussions.
If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand or type your question into the question box or the chat box. Thanks so much, Anil. Definitely answered a lot of questions that I know I've had and questions that I've received from patients. So it was really helpful. Thank you.
Yes, no problems. Yeah, I can stay on if people have questions or they want to ask anything for a couple of minutes. If not, then we can give some time back to people.
Sure. Nothing coming in just yet. But is there a way to reach you, Anil? And if folks have more questions, you can always reach
Yes.
us and we can connect you. Or do you have, are you able to provide your contact info?
Yes, I can. What's the best way to do that? I can tell you what my email is.
Sure.
It's Anil, ANIL .kaul, KAUL at Sobi, SOBI.com.
Perfect. I'll just add that into the chat box.
And then my cell number I'll give you as well, 204-999-4722.
4722. I'm just putting that in the chat box for folks.
Actually,
and will we share the slides? Oh, that's okay. Yes, we will be sharing. The slides will be available. The session is recorded, and so you can watch the session back, which will include the slides. If you'd like to have Anil's slides sort of in PDF, feel free to reach out to us, and we can send that to you.
All right.
I don't see any other questions, so we'll say goodbye then. Thank you so much, Anil. I really appreciate your time. Oh, see, right on the buzzer, right on the buzzer. Okay, I have read the COVID experience has created an opportunity for sober second thought regarding the new drug approval process. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so COVID has actually shown us that although there's this lengthy process, that it can be shortened when people put their mind to it.
Right.
But is that reality for all the drugs and all the products? Now, I mean, resources are a challenge. You saw the number of negotiations, number of drugs that are approved by Health Canada. It is a challenge. I mean, I'm not saying by any means, but certainly we would love to see a faster process, partnership. We've approached the government as an industry to see how we can collaborate on this, but there has to be a willingness to do so. Yeah, no, we would welcome a faster process, especially in rare disease. You know, sometimes we need to approve something, especially where there's uncertainty with small numbers, and then work together, like I said before, in collaboration to maybe have a registry or to monitor and track the outcomes. And if they're not what the studies that were borne out to be, then yeah, the hook should be on the manufacturer and not on the payers.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It's a good question. COVID has changed so much in healthcare. I hadn't really thought about the drug approval process, but that's a really good point. And we just have one more question here.
Yeah.
Is there still time for patient advocacy groups to push on Health Canada, to sort of do their advocacy work? There seemed to have been no manufacturing of vaccines in Canada because of public policy made it unprofitable to manufacture here. So is there anything that advocacy groups can do to sort of push on that?
Certainly. Health Canada is approachable. Patient groups and patients can reach out to them and let them be known. This is one thing about another topic that I've spoken on is about advocacy. If people don't hear about any concerns and stuff, they feel it's out of sight, out of mind. So it's very, very prevalent in politics and in advocacy. So it sometimes is best to approach and let the concerns be heard or bring your concerns forward, because in politics, if they're not hearing about it, to them, it doesn't exist. So I would encourage people to reach out to Health Canada if that is, you're passionate about that, and see what they say and pursue it.
For sure. Okay, I think that may officially be the last question. Well, again, Anil, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to everyone for coming today. Again, you can find this presentation. It will be available on our website. If you need any support or looking for information on aplastic anemia, myelodysplastic syndrome, or PNH, or any other rare disease, please feel free to contact us. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day. Thanks,
Yeah,
Anil.
thank you, Kimberly, and thanks, Cindy, and thanks to AMAC.
Anytime. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.